The 1980s were a golden era for horror movies, a time when filmmakers pushed boundaries like never before. While slasher franchises like Friday the 13th and A Nightmare on Elm Street dominated mainstream horror, there was a stranger, wilder side to the genre that went overlooked. Some of these films leaned into bizarre storytelling, off-the-wall comedy, shocking violence, and endings that left audiences speechless. Today, we're diving into some of the weirdest and most savage horror gems of the 80s. Take for a quick example, Brian Yuzna's Society from 1989. It isn't just weird, it's a grotesque fever dream drenched in social satire. The story follows a teenager who suspects his wealthy family is hiding a disturbing secret. What starts out as paranoia spirals into a body horror nightmare when he discovers the truth. His family, along with the social elite, are part of a twisted cult that engages in a ritual called the shunting. The final act explodes into a surreal display of melting, merging flesh as the rich literally absorb the poor. It's a stomach-turning spectacle that still shocks viewers today. Ready to discover more savage and weird 80s gems? Stay tuned and proceed with caution. Who knows, maybe one or all of these might become favorites for the rest of your life. Let's get down to brass tacks. Kevin S. Tenney's Night of the Demons from 1988 is a quintessential 80s horror flick that delivers a gory, fun, and outrageous experience. With its mix of supernatural horror, over-the-top practical effects, and campy humor, the film has rightfully earned its place as a cult classic. The plot follows a group of teens who decide to party in an abandoned funeral home on Halloween night. Among them is the seductive and mysterious Angela, played by Amelia Kincaid, who, along with her friend Suzanne, played by the iconic Linnea Quigley, unwittingly unleashes a demonic force. One by one, the partygoers succumb to possession, transforming into grotesque, murderous demons. Linnea Quigley steals the show with her performance as Suzanne. Her infamous lipstick scene remains one of the most bizarre and unsettling moments in 80s horror, showcasing the film's commitment to practical effects and body horror. Amelia Kincaid's Angela, with her hypnotic dance scene and eerie presence, cements herself as one of the genre's most memorable horror villains. The film thrives on its eerie, gothic atmosphere, aided by strong cinematography and a creepy synth-heavy score. The use of shadow and light within the haunted house setting enhances the tension, while the exaggerated gore and creature designs bring a level of absurdity that makes the horror fun rather than purely terrifying. What makes Night of the Demons stand out is its ability to balance genuine scares with campy humor. The film embraces its low-budget nature, turning it into a strength rather than a weakness. Fans of 80s horror, practical effects, and outrageous horror comedy will find this film endlessly entertaining. Night of the Demons is a wild, gruesome ride that embodies the spirit of late 80s horror. It's a must-watch for fans of supernatural slashers and cult horror classics.
Run, Judy, run! See, Judy, run!
Wes Craven's Deadly Blessing from 1981 is an underrated and atmospheric horror film that blends psychological terror, religious fanaticism, and supernatural elements. While not as widely celebrated as Craven's later works like A Nightmare on Elm Street or Scream, this eerie thriller offers a slow-burn narrative with unsettling imagery and a strong sense of dread. The story takes place in a rural farming community where a widow, Martha, played by Maren Jensen, finds herself at odds with a nearby religious sect known as the Hittites, who believe she and her friends are the work of the incubus. When mysterious deaths and supernatural occurrences plague the area, paranoia and terror escalate, blurring the lines between reality and nightmare. The cast includes Sharon Stone in one of her earliest roles and horror icon Michael Berryman as a menacing cult member. One of the film's strengths is its haunting atmosphere. Craven masterfully uses isolation, religious zealotry, and dreamlike horror to create tension. The eerie farm setting, combined with dark religious undertones, adds an unsettling mood reminiscent of folk horror. There are some standout moments, including dream sequences that heighten the film's psychological terror, and the terrifying bathtub scene that later influenced A Nightmare on Elm Street. Even though it's an influence on Elm Street, and maybe that film perfected the moment, this is definitely a standout. However, Deadly Blessing does have its flaws. The pacing is slow at times, and the plot meanders, struggling to maintain consistent suspense. The final twist is bold, but it's very divisive, leaving some viewers questioning its logic. Despite its shortcomings, Deadly Blessing is an intriguing entry in Craven's filmography. While not his most polished work, it offers glimpses of the mastery he would later refine. Fans of eerie, slow-burn horror with a unique premise will find it a worthwhile watch. Stuart Gordon's From Beyond is a visually stunning and grotesquely imaginative horror film that pushes the boundaries of body horror and psychological terror. Based on H.P. Lovecraft's short story, the film expands on the original premise with a heavy dose of surreal, nightmarish imagery, making it a must-watch for fans of 80s horror and cosmic horror themes. The story follows Dr. Crawford Tillinghast, played by Jeffrey Combs, who along with Dr. Pretorius creates a machine called the Re-Animator, designed to stimulate the pineal gland and allow humans to perceive beyond normal reality. However, their experiment opens a gateway to a horrifying dimension filled with monstrous, otherworldly entities. After Pretorius is seemingly killed and transformed into a grotesque creature, Tillinghast is institutionalized, only to be released by psychologist Dr. Catherine McMichaels, played by the lovely Barbara Crampton, and a skeptical detective, played by Ken Foree, to continue the experiments with terrifying consequences. Barbara Crampton shines in a role that allows her to showcase intelligence, vulnerability, and a descent into madness. Her transformation from the composed scientist to someone who was absolutely seduced by the Re-Animator's effects is both eerie, fascinating, and extremely seductive. Jeffrey Combs delivers another intense, twitchy performance, reinforcing his status as a cult horror icon. The film's real star, however, is its gruesome practical effects. The creature designs, body mutations, and surreal horror elements are nightmarish and visceral, reminiscent of The Thing and Re-Animator. From Beyond is a bold, gory, and unsettling ride filled with grotesque imagery and mind-bending horror. While not for the faint of heart, it is a must-watch for fans of Lovecraftian horror, practical effects, and surreal storytelling. Stuart Gordon and Brian Usna crafted a bizarre yet unforgettable horror experience that lingers long after the credits roll.
Their minds may be influenced by those creatures.
Well, how about the hard on I got? Is there a statistical correlation for that too?
The Entity from 1982 is a deeply unsettling supernatural horror film that stands out for its psychological intensity and disturbing subject matter. Directed by Sidney Furie and starring Barbara Hershey in a powerhouse performance, the film blends supernatural terror with a harrowing exploration of trauma, making it one of the more unnerving horror films of the 1980s. Based on the real-life case of Doris Bither, The Entity follows Carla Moran, played by Hershey, a single mother who becomes the target of a violent and invisible force that repeatedly attacks and assaults her. Seeking help, she turns to a team of parapsychologists who believe she is dealing with a malevolent, otherworldly presence. Meanwhile, her psychiatrist insists that the attacks are manifestations of deep psychological wounds, creating a chilling conflict between science and the supernatural. Barbara Hershey delivers a stunning performance, portraying Carla with raw emotion and conviction. Her ability to convey terror, resilience, and vulnerability makes the film all the more powerful. The attacks themselves are brutal and unnerving, heightened by an eerie, pulsating score that adds to the film's oppressive atmosphere. Fury's direction uses inventive camera angles and disorienting cinematography to create a sense of helplessness, making the viewer feel as trapped as Carla. What sets the entity apart is its ambiguity. It never fully commits to a supernatural or psychological explanation, leaving audiences questioning what is truly happening. While the film's pacing may feel slow at times, the tension remains palpable throughout, culminating in a climax that is both terrifying and thought-provoking. The Entity is a harrowing and effective supernatural horror film that lingers in the mind long after watching. It's a must-see for fans of psychological horror, especially those who appreciate films that blur the line between the paranormal and the psychological. Maniac from 1980, directed by William Lustig, is a grim and unsettling journey into the mind of a deranged killer. Known for its unflinching brutality and controversial content, the film remains a notorious entry in the slasher genre, providing a disturbing portrait of a man consumed by his inner demons. The story follows Frank Zito, played by Joe Spinell, a disturbed loner in New York City who stalks and murders women, driven by traumatic childhood experiences and unresolved psychological issues. Frank scalps his victims, using their hair to adorn mannequins in his apartment, creating a grotesque shrine to his madness. However, when he meets photographer Anna, played by Caroline Munro, Frank struggles between his desire for human connection and his compulsion to kill. Joe Spinell's portrayal of Frank Zito is nothing short of haunting. His performance is raw and unsettling, humanizing a monstrous character without ever excusing his horrific actions. Spinell's ability to evoke both sympathy and revulsion elevates the film beyond mere exploitation. The film's sparse dialogue and intense focus on Frank's psyche creates a claustrophobic atmosphere that mirrors his mental decay. The practical effects by Tom Savini, renowned for his work in Dawn of the Dead and Friday the 13th, are brutally effective. The violence in Maniac is graphic and unrelenting, with Savini's notorious shotgun scene standing out as one of the genre's most shocking moments. Lustig's direction captures the grimy underbelly of New York, enhancing the film's gritty realism. Maniac, though, is not for everyone. Its explicit content and disturbing themes make it a challenging watch. However, for fans of psychological horror and gritty slashers, it offers a raw and provocative experience. Despite its controversial nature, the film's impact on the horror genre is undeniable, serving as a chilling exploration of madness and obsession. Have you seen any of these twisted gems? Which 80s horror movie shocked you the most? Or was the weirdest of them all? Drop your thoughts in the comments below. And if you love exploring the wild side of horror, be sure to like, subscribe, hit the notification bell so that you never miss out on more terrifying recommendations. And if you're watching this, if you're listening to this, you are the Night Watch. Peace.